So we're going to talk about brand safety and suitability. Before we do, can I hear from some of you guys? I'd love to know how many of you work with a network and represent shows, if I can see hands. That's pretty much anybody. Anybody representing anything else other than content who's here today? Did I see a hand? No? Maybe? Shout it out. Tell me if you do anything besides representing content. Like, what do you do in podcasts? Do you make a show? Content creator. You're a creator. Wonderful. What do you create?
I have a show about organizing and decluttering.
I need to listen to your show. Okay, and when you're doing that show, do you find that it's a great marketing piece to bring in consulting engagements or things like that? Is there a secondary business associated, or are you just somebody with a passion?
A little bit. It's not so much selling. I also coach under other professional organizers.
Okay.
So it helps credibility, but it's a full-time monetization show.
Yeah. Great. Well, I hope we have a chance to sponsor you if we're not already. So, very good. Okay, so I'll get started now that everybody's here. Welcome everybody coming in. If you don't mind coming up front, we'd love to see you. I'd love to see you a little closer. And I'm going to talk to you for maybe, we'll see. I timed it at about 10 minutes, but that means it might go 20. And then what I'd love to do is pass a mic around and have more of an open dialogue. I think that in the last, I'd say 12 months, brand safety and suitability has definitely taken on a deeper meaning for many people that work across the audio ecosystem. Hi, Claire. And I think that it's complicated. It's a tricky subject, and there's a lot of different ways to play it depending on where you sit. If you're a creator, it's something to be mindful of. If you're representing content, it's something to be mindful of. If you're a brand, it's everything. And if you're an agency, you probably, like a lot of the people representing content, feel stuck in the middle a lot. So there's different ways to play it. So I'm going to give you my point of view. Not everything I say is on behalf of our agency, Oxford Road. If you don't know Oxford Road, we are the leading independent audio agency that works with a ton of brands. And we've been in the space. We're celebrating our 10-year anniversary this year. So that's what we do. And it's given us a ringside seat on a lot of the topics that we're touching on today. So, so let's talk about brand safety and suitability. World Economic Forum, whatever stock you put in their points of view, they describe what's going on in our world today as a polycrisis, meaning that there are multiple challenges affecting the world simultaneously at a larger scale than what we're accustomed to. Kind of everything everywhere all at once is, I think, what a lot of us are experiencing in terms of just things changing in the world around us and opportunities for fear and concern. You still have some version of the pandemic impacting us in big ways. The war in Ukraine, energy, cost of living, climate, all of these things going on at once, and that cascades into a lot of other problems. The Edelman comes out with a report, their trust barometer, and one of the things that they're seeing is that nobody trusts our institutions anymore. People have very little confidence in the market right now. The economic optimism that many people were feeling over the last couple of years, even in spite of all the other challenges we faced, that's dead. And people don't trust government, they don't trust NGOs, they don't trust media, and the best of the group in terms of gaining the public's trust is actually corporations still. Media just got worse. Gallup came out with a study that basically said trust in media content is at an all-time low. It's been at an all-time low. I guess the story there is that it continues to drop. We have not found the bottom of the loss of trust between consumers and audiences and the shows and content and writing that is reaching them. People don't trust each other. We are still, I think, dealing with the fact that we've been in an attention economy for a long time, which means the loudest voice gets the most benefit. And the problem with an attention economy where dollars follow the loudest voice is that it allows people to exploit fear and exploit vulnerability, and it causes people to get a lot more tribal. So everybody kind of gets in their corners and says, the other is bad, we are good. And polarization is one of the implications of this. Now, I don't think all polarization is bad. It's good that we have disagreement on important issues. It's good that we have other perspectives. Our whole system is founded on that idea. But the problem is that when we see the other is not just wrong, but also evil. And that starts to have a lot of implications in the work that we do, the businesses we try to lead, the relationships we try to manage, and of course, all of our personal relationships. We all have a lot of complicated conversations with family and old friends that are taking us places we never really had to go before. So why am I talking about this for a monetization track at a podcast conference? What does this have to do with our day jobs? And I guess I would argue it has everything to do with it. We are in a people business, and these are things that affect our customers, our audiences, and your revenue. So at Oxford Road, we represent businesses. Businesses are people too, and you represent creators, and you have to speak to a constituency of audience members, and you have to deal with the needs of a brand. One of the first things I'd say about safety and suitability in terms of brands is that, like, plain and simple, brands aren't looking to pick fights. Typically, you have this phenomenon in media today where this loudest voice attention economy concept, where you could really just decide, hey, I'm going to focus on this 10% of the market, and I'm going to alienate 90% of it, and that's going to be a great business for me. You can actually create a multi-billion-dollar company, as we've seen some do, purely based on extreme ideology. Brands don't generally look at it that way. There's a few instances where they do, but largely speaking, they need market share. They need to reach across differences. They need relationships and trust from people that have very different ideas about the world. So it's not really to their benefit to grow market share and to keep their customers if they find themselves in too difficult a situation with things that some of their customers may find problematic. So they're not looking to pick fights. And the other thing to just keep in mind as we're talking about the context is, and you've probably read about this before, but the Business Roundtable several years ago got together and redefined the purpose of a corporation. They basically said it's no longer about shareholder capitalism, it's all about stakeholder capitalism. And in making that statement, some of the implications are that it's not enough just to say, are we making profit today? There has to be a purpose baked in. And I think you've seen that shift in the culture where consumers now have different expectations of corporations. They want a good product, they want a good price. They also care about having some level of value alignment with the companies that they're doing business with. So all of that kind of feeds into the complexity and the challenge we face when we talk about brand safety and suitability. And for all the corp business speak about it, if you want to cut the BS out of brand safety and suitability, for safety, the way I look at it is it's an insurance policy. You've got marketers who are busy and taxed and trying to deal with multiple stakeholders. The last thing that they need is to get a call from their boss asking why their board is pissed and why there are workers complaining to HR about their ad spend choices, and there may be customers complaining, and they may be trending on Twitter for all the wrong reasons. This is what they're up against. It's understandable that they want to avoid content that's going to create unnecessary problems and surprises. Business is so much about managing expectations and keeping people from getting surprised. What happens when you don't meet your projections? Nobody wants that type of disruption to their organization. So there's a lot of CYA going on. When you talk about brand suitability, the way I look at it is safety is kind of the brake, suitability is kind of the gas. So what's nice about suitability, now that that's sort of been introduced into the conversation, is it's really about value alignment. It's about saying, this is what we believe, this is what we stand for, and we're going to carry that through and actually seek content that aligns with what we say that we believe and who we say that we are. And that is more about adding to your list of media opportunities rather than reducing it. So it's good to take these things in context, as people need something to move towards. One of the challenges that has existed in our space in podcast is a lack of tools. I would argue that all media buyers are lacking in tools. There are tools available. They're not all fully evolved, just like our own podcast industry. It's nascent. We're still trying to pave the roads here, and there's a lot of bumpy stuff that happens along the way. As an agency, we've partnered with a number of these groups, that are in the business of trying to decode content, trying to give people information about the work that they're putting their brand adjacent to so that they can make better decisions. But it's tough sledding, and it's a work in progress, and I don't think we're at massive milestones yet. You know, when the Joe Rogan story, before Ukraine, Joe Rogan was like the top story last year, and I think that sparked something big that got people paying attention. I think it's gonna be with us for the long haul. I get comments from our clients or businesses that we talk to where we'll ask and we'll say, hey, so how do you think about brand safety and suitability at your company? What kind of things do you look for, and how do you guys make decisions as an organization? Because typically podcast isn't the only thing that they're participating in. And I'll get responses like, no anti-vax content, no right-wing content, no news content, no social issues, no politics. But one of the problems I think that we have today is that everything's politics. News, sports, society and culture, pick a topic, it's now political. And so how do you actually guide an advertiser to safe spaces where they're going to be able to advertise and not get caught up in all of this national food fight that we're a part of? It's tough to do if you're in the media business. So what they've done so far is not great. The marketplace has generally decided that there are certain keywords or certain topics that they're going to avoid in their sponsorship. But that lends itself to all kinds of problems. What happens when a society doesn't have quality brands monetizing news organizations, and those news organizations that are ad-supported are the only access to information that some people who can't pay for those premium subscriptions are able to consume? What do we do with that? And what do we do with new problems that keep showing up in our culture that nobody can talk about because we've made certain topics unmentionable? How do you break that down? How do you find alignment? And what do brands do in this type of a situation? So we started a podcast early in the pandemic called the Media Roundtable. We started interviewing people across the ecosystem and getting their perspectives on this sort of thing. So we had creators on the right, on the left, a lot of news journalists. We had network owners. We had advertisers. We had the groups that are trying to create solutions to solve these types of problems. And we tried to have a conversation about, like, all right, what's our job here as media? What's our job here as advertisers? And how do we make this work given the complexity of the world that we're in? We came up with a thesis, and it is that the advertising community is best positioned to take a stand on behalf of the values they profess and really hold media accountable for the work that they're doing. Our message is that we want to stop blocking topics and start blocking irresponsible handling of those topics. And so what we do is we support healthy dialogue. I think we can agree that we need healthy dialogue. We need people that can find solutions to the problems that the world is facing and is super fearful about today. We need to make compromises. We need to show that we can respect people even across differences. And we need role models in media to do it. And I think it's very important that this message get delivered here among people that are in the creation business or the monetization business of content, because it's going to be up to you guys to decide what products there are available. But if you want the perspective of the advertising community, at least from my point of view, from the small corner from where we sit, we need people that are building bridges rather than burning them. You're going to have to decide how you deal with that. There are a lot of tools, and as I've mentioned, this is my third year speaking about this topic at Podcast Movement. The first year we introduced something called Ad Fontes Media, which has the media bias chart. We partnered with them to bring what they do to podcast, where they actually plot out how reliable news content is and how biased it is on the left-right spectrum, so that brands can say, what's our comfort level, and make sure that they're targeting their advertising within those parameters. That's now built into how we do business at our firm. Last year, we came and introduced Barometer, who is here this week. Barometer uses AI to offer, and they've taken their tech stack and they've pointed it squarely at our field to be able to take the GARM brand safety and suitability framework and assign risk profiles based on different types of topics. And I think that there's a lot of progress that has been made in the last couple of years, and I'm happy to say we've been able to be a part of it through strategic investments, through partnership, and through advocacy. And so there are tools that are out there. At our firm, something else we do is there's a lot of human touch aspects to this topic that we have to do. Sometimes it's crisis management, because you're never going to be able to avoid flare-ups. Somebody that is going to say something that's going to upset a bunch of people, and I don't care if you do a podcast about organizing your life, at some point, something messy is going to happen if you reach enough people. Somebody's going to get their toes stepped on eventually, just because everything's gotten so politicized. And we have full-time staff who's dedicated to helping us make sure that we are keeping our promises to our clients in balancing their business objectives and the performance of their campaigns with the values that they profess as a brand. There has to be a link there. It's like supply chain. It's another form of sustainability, and we see it as our duty to participate in that. I think, I've been a little bit obsessive about this topic, so I think we're probably more of an outlier in the advertising community. But I do think if you look to us, because we're so focused on it, I think you'll see where the market is going and where it's going to be in the next couple of years. Like when the Joe Rogan stuff happened, we were already dealing with this and had solutions ready to go. So I think what you're going to start to see as tech gets a little smarter is you're going to see an evolution in moving from just being afraid of topics to the actual context in which a topic is discussed. And that's really what we want to bring to the forefront. And so, we're on a mission to advance responsible dialogue. And we expose content that is responsible, and we expose content that is less responsible, and we're going to be doing so with increasing sophistication. We don't do that because we're trying to call anybody out. We're not trying to get people's contracts canceled. That's not our goal. But we do see that there are problems in the marketplace that need to be solved, and this has to be addressed on behalf of brands and, frankly, on behalf of all of us. I believe that this is as much a personal mandate as it is a business mandate. And so, arsonists for profit, beware. There is accountability that is coming. And we want to make it less profitable to stir up dissension and dehumanization of other groups of people, no matter how much we might disagree with them. And the problem is, and sometimes I'll talk to a content creator who's really on a far extreme position. Most people aren't, but there are a lot of them, and I'll talk to them and I'll say, how's your strategy working out when what you're doing is talking about the evil of the people that see things differently than you? Is that a winning strategy? And typically what happens is they start backtracking very quickly. They don't really believe in it when they do it. I think they get caught up, and honestly, it's a shortcut. It's a way to tap into people's emotions and get people to respond to ad copy, and it's a way to attract attention. And they know that fundamentally. So by exposing more of this, I think we'll start to see people course correct in the way that they approach some of these things. At least that's where we're betting will happen, and that's why we're working so hard on it. There's a financial opportunity here for you. Your income depends on two variables: the size of your audience and the quality of the information that you give them. So what I would encourage all of you to do wherever you sit, if you're a sales rep, if you're a creator, if you're a manager, I just say, take a look in the mirror and ask yourself, am I doing what I should be doing? Am I advocating for things that I believe in? And you have a choice. Your choice is you can hide from controversy. You can avoid the unmentionable topics, no matter how important they might be for our lives. You can leverage the chaos and divide your audiences from other people, and you can sell outrage. Or you can choose responsibility, and you can build the bridges like we're talking about and have constructive dialogue across differences, which people do not know how to do. You know how many shows we have about murder? It's fine, we sponsor them. I'm not saying they need to go away, but do we need more of those? Or would it be helpful if we had some shows where people modeled how to solve problems with people that are different than they are? And if you would do that, if you would create that, I want you to tell us about it. I want you to contact Oxford Road. I want you to contact me. I want you to tell me what you're doing, because we want to advocate for you. We want to spotlight you. We want to champion your work. We want to bring this to the advertising community. It's hard. It's not the easy route. We've got an election coming up, you might have heard, and we're all starting to gear up for that cycle. Who's excited about Trump versus Biden and everything that's going to come from that? Is anybody voting for that matchup? It's going to get ugly again. We've just been through this. I think we have PTSD from like 7 different things right now just by living in the world, and it's going to get ugly. And this is an opportunity for you to make a decision about if you're going to be part of the problem or you're going to be part of the solution. And a lot of people have convinced themselves they're part of the solution by throwing rocks at their enemies. I submit to you that that's not interesting. That's not new. That's been done, and it's killing us. We need people to operate differently. We need to actually start confronting our differences in responsible ways. So that's my call to you. That's my invitation, and I can assure you there are people on the agency side, on the brand side, who want to get behind and support responsible speech. And so 2024 is now upon us. See what you can do to help. That's all I got. Now, I don't mind getting you out of here early, but if you're open, I would love to pass the mic around, and I'd love to hear from you guys. And please try not to talk as long as I have. But I'd love to hear questions, comments, challenges. Let's just talk in the spirit of conversation.
Is this thing on? It is. I'm Kelly. I'm with the Young Turks, the TYT network. And everything you said is kind of speaks to the challenges that we're feeling right now. We are on the left, and especially with the current economic environment and being news and politics being mainly blacklisted, with the way I see it, with the Brookings study that just came out, and a small number of creators on the right are creating 80% of the myths or disinformation that's permeating the podcast industry. So how do we on the left, who, by the way, advocate for we were ahead of corporations and companies, and advocating for the environment. We've turned down large chunks of money from oil companies. It's a no-go for us. So how would you recommend that we navigate and position ourselves in this environment when, we're already aligned with where most corporations are going. I mean, majority of our audience are young, highly educated, and have a huge purchasing power. You know, in election cycles, we get almost 500 billion views across all of our platforms, but can't get brands to align with us.
All right. So, I don't need the mic. What's your name?
Kelly.
Hi, Kelly. So, congratulations on the success with the Young Turks. They've been an institution for a long time, and I think it's great that we have voices on the left that have that kind of a platform. I think I have a fundamental challenge with the way you frame the question, because it was predicated on the idea that the problem is all on the other side. And I think that there may be truth in that, but it's not helping anyone to focus on what's not on our side of the street, whatever side you're on. I don't think this problem gets solved by more pointing and saying we only have this problem because of them. I don't think we get anywhere until we say the problem is us. And if I'm 20% of it, how do I clean up my side of the street? And what is the spirit in which I'm approaching these topics? Am I reaching out to the 80% of the problems people, and am I challenging them in a respectful way, or am I just putting them on the defense? Because what does anybody do when you call them out? I used to be really into calling people out publicly. It's embarrassing, but it's true. And I think what I've learned through how successful that strategy isn't, is that all you do is make people dig in on their defenses. This is what is killing us, is that it is not about showing how wrong the other guy is. It's about taking personal responsibility for anything you can do and asking yourself, how can I be part of that solution? How can I get somebody who has a point of view to understand my point of view? And calling them out is not the way. But it's low-hanging fruit, and it gets more views. And so the challenge here is not only to have the humility to take a self-inventory, and whatever 1, 2, 3, 4% of the accountability here, if it rests with you to deal with that, that's not the only hard part. That's like a spiritual exercise. The next hard part for your business is saying we may need to take a hit on some of our download count, because we're not going to take the low-hanging fruit. We're not going to exploit the difference. We're not just going to rub their nose in it. And look, I just had a conversation, and you can hear it on our podcast, with some folks on the left, another group, and I was listening to some of their content, and they're referring to these assholes on the right. These assholes on the right. Are there a lot of assholes on the right? You better believe it. I think they're on the left too. But I also am, this is our families. These are people that we work with. This is people that we see and interact with every day, and we're not going to change their minds about anything if we refer to them as assholes with the first word out of our mouth. And so that's my challenge. It's not easy, and I sold talk radio for 10 years before starting the agency, and I know how easy it is to get trapped, but I think we have to be clear about the problem, and the problem is us. And as soon as we think the problem is them, we are now the problem. That's my point of view. Yes, sir. Whatever you want, whatever you're comfortable with.
My name is Desh. I'm from This Is 42. I just want to thank you guys first, because you've actually been supporting one of our bigger podcasts, Conversations with Coleman, which is a political, philosophical podcast that's in the center. There's only a few of us who are in the center, not taking the left or the right. So I just want to say thank you for that. You mentioned earlier that these are the kind of shows you guys are hoping to help. If there are new shows coming up in the space that is sort of the intellectual, philosophical, but in the center, and it's generally difficult to get brands. We got lucky with you guys with one podcast. If we want to create more of this kind of content where we bring all of the political aisle into the center so we can have meaningful conversations, how do we connect with brands in a meaningful way?
Well, here's what I can tell you from where we sit. If you're doing responsible content, And I'm going to talk about you saying your shows are in the middle. But let me just address the core question. One thing we can do very specifically is we have a publication called The Influencer, which goes to our LinkedIn following, which is a lot of people in the advertising community, whether they're our clients or not. And The Influencer, which reaches thousands of people in the advertising community, whether they're our clients or not. And we spotlight shows. And on our podcast, periodically, I will interview hosts to have these types of discussions. So I think that, look, you're going to be on no-buy lists no matter what. That's not going away quick, okay? What we want those things to be is a little less black and white and a little more constructive, because it's just so binary right now. But they're still in play, so I think it's a lot of ground game, and I think it's about merchandising the fact that you're making progress in a responsible way. But I want to address the middle thing, because I think this can get confused. I think it's great you're in the middle. I think it's great Young Turks are on the left. I think it's great we have people on the right, and there are responsible voices on the right. I believe that, whether or not I agree with them on things they may say or do. But I don't think it's about everybody having to be in the middle. That's not how we got here. We got here from people that were really opinionated on different sides of an issue, coming and having to meet with the reality of their ideas and have those ideas challenged. I think that's the refining fire that makes something good, is you have to test it. You have to quality control your thinking. Accountability is important. So I'm not saying it's bad to be in the middle, but I don't want there to be confusion that I'm saying like everybody should do centrist content, because that's not, I don't think that's how our society thrives, by everybody having to be in unison in their belief systems. That's not what it's all about. So I think there's opportunity for you. I think there's still opportunity for everyone else. Got a hand back there. And we're a small enough room, we may just be able to hear you.
Hi, my name is Darius. I'm with Los Angeles Times, and I just wanted to know, are brands differentiating between like established newsrooms putting out podcasts versus like me and my buddy just chit-chatting about our opinions? Is that something that's differentiated? And then also, you know, if you are on a no-go list, is there a way to find out?
So for your first question, I mean, look, I think it's the same as anything else. It's like it's a branding exercise, right? So if you're talking to somebody that listens to an independent group, like, you know, I was talking about the Midas Touch Network earlier, and it's three brothers and very, very informal. And then you've got every major media organization now creating content as well. Everybody's doing it. And I think that if you're a buyer, if you're a brand, you're going to give extra value in the consideration set to the one that you're most familiar with. And if you can associate with something that has higher credibility and more of a legacy, I think that's probably a benefit. But I have not personally yet seen any specific application where that's even really part of the discussion. That's more me speculating. Now, your second question is, how do you find out if you're on the list? And I guess I would say just assume you are, and if you're here, there's a good chance you're on the list. So, you know, if you're talking about something that people are debating about, even if you're just saying that it happened, like, people don't always differentiate between news and opinion. And by the way, media used to require this. You had your opinions on the page for opinions, and you had news where you had expectations of standards of journalism in a different section. We decided that wasn't necessary in an open ecosystem. I'd like to see some of that come back. But regardless, because it's also fragmented and so chaotic, I think that if you're in the news business, know that you're being left off of buys as a rule. And the bigger the brand and the bigger the agency, probably the more that's happening. Getting people at scale to think critically is hard. So I would try to look for brands that have a track record of sponsoring the type of content that you create. And I try to really go deep rather than wide on those, because a lot of times you're gonna be wasting your breath. But look, I'm in the game for the long haul here. You guys, I hope, are too. And I hope maybe in a decade, we'll be somewhere where there will be qualitative differences that reach everybody. But I don't think we're quite there yet. Anybody else? Comments, questions, challenges? Yes, sir.
Dan, I think it's great that Oxford Red wants to have its brand support quality content and things like that. But ultimately, at Oxford, it's about bringing performance to your advertisers as a performance agency. So where does that fall into play? Because, I'm with Wondery and Oxford's run with a number of our shows. It's great. We tend to be pretty neutral with our content. But, a lot of times if shows don't perform, or a lot of times shows just don't have the scale, like how do you handle that then? Because you have certain brands that may perform really, really well in conservative content and different things like that.
So I don't know if you guys ever do use Masterclass, but they have one that Howard Schultz did from Starbucks, and I thought it was great. And one of the things he says in one of the early segments is, and I won't say the quote verbatim, but it's something to the effect of, the price of entry to being a values-based company is financial performance. And I thought that was so well said. And I think we all got, money was flowing a little easier for people in the last few years, and the same, business accountability that has always been at play got lessened in the last few years. We've always been a performance-focused agency. Like I keep waiting to meet the people that are like, just get my name out there. I don't usually find them. You don't get in the door if you don't drive impact. That's the point of advertising. Whether or not they need to call now, or whether you want to be see a response 3 years from now because you made a positive impression. We're all trying to drive a result, and I don't think that goes away. I think that is the job. But then there's another piece of it, which is with this notion of stakeholder capitalism that I think we have to just accept as the rule today. There is an expectation that you are not just profit, that you're more than profit. Now, a lot of those, you're seeing ESG under fire now, and as we're teetering on recession and some industries that maybe you've heard of are already in one, you're starting to see people walking back a lot of the great pledges that they made and benefits that they were offering, and areas of focus that they were doing that were more on social issues than were on just saving people money. And I think that I think you're starting to see the pendulum swing the other way again a little bit, but it's still there. I think it's with us. And I think that both are now an expectation, but you don't get to the values piece until you get to the business piece, because you have to keep the lights on first, or else you're not going to benefit anybody. So that's how I look at it. That talking about one doesn't eliminate the other. Cool. Anybody else? Is this a fun topic? You guys having a good time? This isn't it's not a real cut up. Okay, what else? Like any personal challenges with this topic? Anything that, I'd love to hear from you.
Hi, my name is Angelo. I have a marketing agency. With the election cycle coming up, a lot of conversation is for marketers and ad agencies to avoid advertising for their clients on news in general, because of you can't really control what's going to be posted there and things like that. What are your opinions about that, and how are you guys handling that?
I mean, so as an agency, I think what we also have to remember, number one, we need the ads to work, and number two, it's their money. It's not our money. So when I talk about this, we may spend 9 figures in the marketplace in audio, but it's not our 9 figures. We are stewards, and we have the ability to advocate. I think our clients do expect us to advocate and to bring up points of view that they may not already have, or else what do they need us for other than just, get it for me cheaper? Also part of the expectation, but it shouldn't be the only value that we provide. And so I think it's our job to assess where a client is today and to try to introduce new thinking to them that might move them a few degrees toward where they should be. And that doesn't mean that we have hard and fast rules for them on how they spend their money, but certainly it's our job to provide guidance and strategic thinking. And so to the extent that you can advocate, I would advocate, and I would continue to highlight for them what the benefits are and why this is important for their customers as an ad channel. I mean, look, by the way, like the topics that make people most afraid are also what drives the best results and impact, but with great power comes great responsibility, and not everybody's responsible. So I think if you're a champion for responsibility and you can really suss that out, I think a brand will be grateful to you even if they decline some things you think they should participate in. You'll get further if you advocate. So I think that's part of the job for us middlemen. All right, well, I may be giving you guys time back, which is fine with me. I'll respond to some emails. But last call on anything you want to say, ask, or otherwise. Oh, no, you stretched at the wrong time. Okay. All right, well, great. I'll be around if anybody wants to chat individually for a little bit. And I thank you guys for hearing me out. And I hope some of it resonates. Appreciate it.